Hello everyone, and welcome to another Battle Force instructional video. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's downloaded the game and given it a try. I would like to let you know that there's some more content coming out in the near future to include a single player version and also a couple more complete narrative campaigns. I've received a couple questions regarding some of the rules, and so I think I'm going to redo all the videos that are currently on the channel regarding how-tos because they're, number one, they're outdated, and I guess that's the only reason I need to do them. But we're going to do a quick run through and touch on everything briefly. This isn't going to be an in-depth kind of explanation. So first of all, what is Battle Force? Battle Force is not a game similar to Warhammer or Bolt Action, Chain of Command, etc., where you're dealing with multiple squads of multiple men. Here we're dealing with a small task force of individual soldiers who are then geared out and become very unique from their squad mates. And so it's a game where you're going to actually become a little bit attached to the guys that you've created. They're going to be kitted out differently, and they're going to have different roles and positions within your battle force. So what do you do to start a battle force game? Well, instead of using points like most other games, we substitute that for dollars. It's basically the same thing with one caveat. Each group of, or I guess the amount of money you spend denotes how many models you get to play with. So typically what you're going to do is agree upon a dollar value. And in this case, let's say you were a buddy, or a narrative campaign specifies that you have and we're just going to pick an arbitrary number, let's say $1 million. We're going to play $1 million game. So as we can see here, we could construct that battle force in several ways. We could buy a task force for $1 million, which would give us 9 models, and that's all we got to do. All the training and gear can be purchased with that $1 million, and all the soldiers can be purchased with that $1 million, and we form a one task force, 9-person unit. But let's say we want to get a little bit more diverse, and for our $1 million, our opponent decides that they're going to take a $500,000 cell and two $250,000 teams. Well, they're going to end up getting 11 models, 5 for the cell and 2 times 3 for the 2 teams they have, spending the same $1 million, but they're going to end up with more models than we have because they have 11. So they're going to end up with 2 more models. So you're thinking, well, how's that fair? Well, they're not able to spend the money. The easier way to say it is they're only able to spend the amount of base funds that they cost to equip and staff that particular unit, in this case a team. So let's take a look over here and see the differences. So our team, seeing by the dollar amounts, is most likely going to be mostly militia or green, and you'll note this looks different here than it does in your book because this is an outdated version. Yours says green / militia and regular / core. So if you want to make your team, which is 3 people, 3 militia, you're going to end up with $195,000 spent of your $250,000 just on troops, and that leaves you $55,000 to equip those 3 soldiers from the equipment list in the back of the book. So if you want to give them top-notch gear, you're going to have to. You only have $55,000 to do it, and you're going to repeat that process twice for your 2 teams, and then once for your cell, you're going to have $500,000 to spend to get 5 guys. So maybe you got a little bit more funds now. You can start getting maybe a couple corps officers and a couple militia and maybe even an operative in there. So now you got higher level troops. Well, your opponent who took the task force and has $1 million to spend, well, maybe he can buy 2 specialists, a couple operatives, and several corps, and just a few green, and still have plenty of money left over to gear out his troops. So what you're going to end up having is less guys, but they're going to have better gear. And that's what these 2 categories actually take into account. If you're a team you're only able to buy gear and training from Category 1, which are your basic things, your bolt rifles, your basic submachine guns. Once you get up into Cat 2, you're going to get your assault rifles. Cat 3, your specialty gear like Dragon shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons. And when you get down to the task force, you're able to get all the categories. So you're at like your highest defensive gear and your best weapons, and also your higher level troops. Now, what the higher level troops do is you'll see that the base skills here, higher is worse as far as this is the number, your base skill is, let me focus that, is the number that you're required to do most actions, i.e. attack successfully or do a skill action successfully. So you'll see the highest level specialist here has a 1+. So if without any other modifiers, he would be succeeding on a 1+. And whereas your green troop is a 3+. Now there are other differences as far as a base action score is how fast you react in combat, and your base defense is how resilient you are to damage. And also the movement category, the higher the trained operative or soldier in this case, they move a little bit better and faster within combat. And that's all reflected here. So that's the basics of construction. And so, for instance, the battle force that comes in the Red Scorpion campaign, the learning campaign. Now this is a $500,000 cell, and we've staffed it with 5 soldiers. We've got an operative, 2 corps, and 2 green, or recruit officer, or militia officers. And then we've given them gear, and the assault rifle with the ACOG and sling, pistol. Every soldier gets comms, or has bought comms, and defensive body armor, and this is 2 in this case with a helm. And we add all these bonuses up, and we end up with the modified action, which takes these bonuses plus their base, or I shouldn't say action, scores, which takes their base scores for action and defense and modifies them by the numbers represented in the columns next to the gear that they've bought. For instance, the pistol gives you a modified base action of +1, and cumulatively we now have a modified action of 7 for our commander and a modified defense of 5 from his defensive gear. And we equip all of the soldiers that way. We end up with a residual amount of $4,500 in our reserve fund, which is the amount of money left over after equipping and training everybody. That's basically it. The only thing that you got to remember, or it's not even a tricky thing to remember, is that even though this opponent that you're playing has a cell and 2 teams, just remember he doesn't get to spend that $1 million cumulative. He can't say, okay, I got 11 guys and $1 million and I'm going to spend it equipping them all. He has to use that $250,000 to buy the personnel and the gear and the training for those 3 guys. And then the residual of that goes in a reserve fund for later in the game. And then he does the same with the other team. And then he does the same with the cell. And for instance, in the Red Scorpion, they end up with close to $45,000 in reserve because they ended up not needing a lot of equipment. So hopefully that clears a little bit up, or maybe confuses you a little bit more. But it really is quite straightforward. So in the next video, I think we're going to go in a little bit about what the base stats are, what they mean, and what modifying them will do. See you then.